Hello.
All right, well, welcome everyone to our ATD Houston session this afternoon. My name is Ken Kahn. I am the Virtual Technology Director for ATD, the ATD Houston chapter for this year. I also work with a company called Eye-to-Eye Technologies, which is a video communications and collaboration solutions company. Today we have a special guest with us, Adam Spindell, who is the president of a company called EdChunk, which is a training and communications company specializing in e-learning. Adam launched a subsidiary of that called EdTotal, a learning record store based on the new Experience API in 2014. So today he's here to share with us some information. The topic is Tin Can API and what it can do for your organization. So if you're not familiar with Tin Can API, like me, you should be in store to learn a lot of information today. Our learning objectives will be to identify the capabilities of Tin Can API, distinguish basic functionality of traditional LMS from a learning record store, recognize the basic structure of Tin Can API statements, and identify instructional design possibilities for tracking and reporting mobile learning. So a couple of quick housekeeping things as well. You have a chat question box that you can use to chat and text comments and questions throughout the presentation. If you if you're in a spot where you can actually unmute your microphone and ask questions, we definitely welcome that as well. If you raise your hand, I will watch for that and reference you and unmute your mic when we get a break in the action. So thanks for joining us. I know we're expecting quite a few other folks to join in here, so we'll probably see some people come on. But again, use the question chat box to send any comments or questions. And looking forward to a great session. So let me turn it over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Ken. Welcome, everybody, and thank you to the Houston chapter of ATD for inviting me. I'm honored to present to all of you. What we're going to talk about today is what Tin Can can do for your organization. And this slide just simply shows people using Tin Can. And here, what they call some of the statements associated with it. So here the statement being sent is Dana calibrated the turbine to 4,000 RPM. Here a person, Heidi, passed the ethics quiz with a score of 80%. Then Simon grafted the vane, and you can actually attach a photo to the statement and save that. And then finally, here's another one, machine 56554 sterilized the work area. Now, one of the things that you notice about all of these photos is nobody's sitting at a desk on a computer. They're all mobile. Some are using phones, some are using iPads. In some cases, the gentleman in the lower right corner is at a machine, and the machine can actually send statements as well. So before we talk about what Tin Can API can do for your organization, let's talk about what Tin Can is and kind of the history of tracking and reporting learning. So back in 1989, e-learning was becoming widely accepted, and basically the military and the aviation authorities decided that they wanted something to track training for e-learning on a computer, and they came up with the AICC standards. And I actually, I'm mature enough, that's a good word, old enough, that I remember I was working at Northwest Airlines, and we were sending people from our department to establish those AICC standards. And that was 1989. Well, learning evolved, and so did computers and computer technology, the web, among other things. Networks evolved. And in 2000, another standard emerged called SCORM. And then SCORM 2004 on top of that. Well, the world has changed quite a bit since 2000. Everybody has cell phones now. Most people have smartphones, and then there are these things called tablets. And now we're seeing wearables, the iWatch and Google Watches, Google Glasses, and other wearable and other devices that are mobile. And it was decided that there needs to be a reporting standard for that. And the reporting standard, the project was called Tin Can. It was the project that was to collect and collate the problems and develop a new standard. The result of that standard is XAPI, or Experience API. So you'll sometimes hear them used interchangeably, and they are used interchangeably. Just the history of it is Tin Can was the project that created the XAPI standard. So the purpose of it is to store and provide access to learning experiences. And you notice, XPI enables tracking of learning experiences, including traditional records such as scores and completion. It also can record a learner's action, like reading an article or watching a training video. What's interesting about reading the spec, the definition, is there's no mention of the word computer. There's no mention of any devices. And that was by design. They wanted a standard to go across devices, to go across computer types, and just focus on the learning experience itself. And what that does, and we'll see later in the presentation, throughout the presentation, is how it frees up learning from the traditional LMS model. Okay. So just to prepare you, I think this is slide number 4. I think I have maybe 16 slides, and I have demos too, so demos coming soon. All right, here's Experience API. It's basically an activity tracker. They made it specifically for the current, to work with current web technology, to make it flexible and lightweight, and in almost all cases, the mechanism that records API statements, or Tin Can, is called a Learning Record Store, or LRS. And in almost all cases, the LRS is a cloud-based system. So the traditional buying and hosting an LMS inside your enterprise, that's something that XAPI was looking to get away from and looking to accommodate a more flexible, lightweight solution. Here are examples of, below, you can see examples of activity statements. And here you see Claudia lifted 50 pounds over her head. Jamal viewed Chapter 3 of the SCS video. Greg attested to the confidentiality agreement. And you can see how this is very different from perhaps what would occur in LMS. How would you put that Claudia lifted 50 pounds over her head into an LMS? How would you put that learning activity or learning experience into an LMS? And XAPI was built specifically to capture not just what you did formally on a computer or in a classroom, but also what you could do informally, that other 90% of learning, which we'll go over in a couple of slides. This is an actual, I lifted this from a project we have. It's a cardholder certification project, and this is an actual XAPI statement. Don't be intimidated by all of this, but here you can see there's 3 basic parts. There's an actor, and here the actor, and you can see Claudia, Jamal, Greg are actors, the machine's an actor. Here the actor is Pete Rubel, and he's identified by his email address. Okay, here's the date it was created, and then what did he do? Well, he applied. That's the verb, and here you can see lifted, viewed, tested. So Pete Rubel applied, and what did he apply to do? Well, he applied for cardholder certification. So that's the object. So at its very basic level, XAPI has an actor, a verb, what they did, which actually ties in very well, as all training people, instructional designers know, it ties in very well with objectives, because objectives are verb-based. And then finally an object of the verb. And here's 50 pounds over his head, Chapter 3. Okay, so on a very basic level, that's what XAPI is, and it becomes an experience, an activity tracker is a good way to think of it.
Adam, a quick question about that slide, if you would go back to it. So obviously that language is, referencing, the English language, does that change based on the language of people that are programming? Because, basically, verb would be related to the English language, right?
Good question. Yes, in a way. So it's a standard protocol. So while it may not say applied, it may be a French or a Spanish word, but yes, there would be a verb in there, and whatever that verb was would change according to what the language is.
Okay.
And the other nice thing about that is you can take in, because these are flexible and lightweight, you can take advantage of features that are available which will translate the verb for you. So you can get it in Spanish and then translate it to English if you want, or vice versa.
Gotcha.
Good question. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I have a little demo set up, and you can go to this demo on your phone. Is probably I would recommend the phone because it has I think the highest impact. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my phone. Let's see, there it is. So here's my phone, and I'm going to go to that site, and I happen to be there. Whoops, sorry, Ed Total Houston. That's not quite it. So here it is. Click on Fire. This is the edtotal.com Houston.html. Click on Fire Safety. So I'll give people a minute to get there. You can also do this. You can do this on the web too. You can see, where is it? Here we go. So sorry. There it is. So you can do it on the web or the phone. Like I said, I recommend the phone only because it's. I think it'll stay with the experience will stay with you a little bit more with the phone because we're not used to using our phones for training. So if I click on Fire Safety.
And I'm right there with you. I got it on my phone and clicking on Fire Safety.
Okay. Right. So what it's going to do is, remember, you need an actor. So what you're going to do here is you're going to put in your name. You can put in any name, by the way. You don't have to put in your own name. So I'm going to put Adam S. And I'm going to put in my email address. And you can fake it too if you want the email address. If you don't want to give your real one, it doesn't matter. It'll still work. But one of the points I want to make here is, remember I said you need an actor. So here you need an actor. You need to identify who the person is taking the training. And what's interesting about Tin Can and XAPI, one of the things I really like about it is that you can use different security depending on what you're using training for. For example, I have a lot of clients who are vendors. Now, the vendors can't get into the LMS because they're not inside the intranet. But what you could do here, just like we did, is provide a little login. If they log in, once they log in and you know somebody, know who it is, you can then track statements from them. Very similarly, you can do it from a SharePoint site. So if a person is on an intranet SharePoint site, you know who they are already because they got to the intranet. There's a code in the session ID that you can use to track people. So now that makes that whole security and sign-in flexible to as much security as you'd like or as little security as you like. So what I'm going to do is here you can see this is fire safety references. This is just a demo. If I click on fire codes, you can see that all these fire codes are listed. Now this could be something where you send out a fire inspector with. So a fire inspector has all of these. He's got fire codes. He's got alarms, sprinklers, and as he's on the job, he can make these references. So in here, I'm going to click on fire codes, and it's going to call up a page with a bunch of fire codes on it. There they are. Now I'm going to go back to my fire safety, and you'll see we put this in so you know your statement is now sent to the LRS. And if I click OK, you see that I get a badge. Now, what's interesting is I'm guessing all of you now have one badge, what's called one badge. You can have, I have multiple badges because it remembers me. It knows who I am because of my ID, adam@edchunk.com, and I can go through and I have multiple badges. What are the advantages of badges? You know, one of the great things about Tin Can is that it reports back to in this case the web page, you know, or the app. It reports back. It reports back status. I know a lot of you out there have had e-learning courses where you've had issues with completion, and people said they completed the course, but they got to the last screen, but they didn't get marked complete. And the reason for that is that the statement got sent to the LMS, but there was no confirmation that you actually went through the course. In other words, the course doesn't read from the LMS, it only writes to it. Here you can read and write to the LMS, or LRS, sorry, Learning Record Store, from web pages, from SharePoint pages, even in some cases from inside tools as well. Inside tools like Captivate and Lectora. Okay. So before we, and you can play around, there's videos you can see, different, some are PDFs, some are videos. I think there's one course in here which is, yeah, there's a course on fiber optics, which I'll click on that just to start it up. It's a really interesting designing for a phone, a course for a phone. But can be done, just have to kind of use a better use of space, not as much text, and depending on what you're doing. So let me click home. Let's see. It's going to act up. There it is. So you can see here's my course on fiber optics. Next, and there are photos in here, and I can scroll up and see the photos. Okay. Let me get back. Let me get back to the page. Hopefully everybody's following along. Up the top is a menu. If you click on that menu like that, and then click checklist, here's another very powerful part of Tin Can API. You can see that the checklist, this is a safety checklist. So if I were in a building, and now we're the fire inspector, now we're doing safety inspection, I could start checking off all of these items in the checklist. So let's say I check this one. There we go, and that got sent. Okay, and I check that one. And one of the things you can do, remember, it's not just learning; it's also activity tracking. It'll record all your statements, and then you can send them through to the LRS, and then the LRS could send the LRS could send all the statements to another system, depending on what statements were checked or weren't checked. It could send alerts to certain people. Very flexible. Here's one of my favorite parts about the demo. You see the see your statements. Whoops, there it is. See your statements. But you click on that, and then scroll up. And I'm going to turn my phone so it more easily read. You can see here are those XAPI statements I talked about earlier, and everything I've done in the LRS gets reported back. And you can see these are not heavy. You know, these are very lightweight statements. You can then send these to other LRSs. You can send them to an LMS. You can send them to other systems. And you can run analytics on them as well. Okay. So that's the, let me run one other piece here. I'm going to call up an app that you don't have access to, but, so this is an app. And this, what this demonstrates is something we call in-field certification. So let's say that you put a person through training. I'll just take welding, for example, that they're a welder. And now you want to certify them that they're properly wearing the safety equipment. I could put the welder's email address in here. And here I'll put welder at weldco.com, and I'll put his name is Willie Welder. And then I could say, watch Willie as he's demonstrating safety equipment. And I could say, okay, just a return. Yep, he identified the required safety equipment. He did that. So it's sending that statement. And obviously some of these things can be sped up. Let's see if it's finding it. Let's see. Completed. Put on the safety equipment. So we can do now in-field certifications and then report on it. Again, if I click the See All button, I can see all of Willie's statements. This is all of, actually, it's all the statements for that instructor. Everybody, the instructor certified is right there. Okay. Hoping that was helpful. Any questions on the demo before kind of I move on with the presentation?
And remember, if you have any questions, you can put those into the chat question box. In addition to comments, if you have any comments about anything, that's a good place for you to put information as well.
All right, so I just showed activity tracking and reporting, very simple, and this piece right here, the interface that I put together, really took about, I'd say it took about 16 hours to gather everything and test it. Not a lot of work there. Activity tracking and reporting from apps, tablets, mobile phones, machines, devices, from content hosted anywhere. And does this sound like your LMS? Oh, probably not. LMSs, traditional LMSs don't work well with apps. I've heard even some tablet horror stories. They're really not designed to work with mobile phones. And that's because the LMS was based on AICC and SCORM. So here's the LMS world. Basically what the LMS world is you have to host content inside the LMS. Sometimes there's a password to access learning. A lot of organizations have overcome that with single sign-on. It's a large system install. I remember one client installing their LMS, and they were told it was, I think at that point, $750,000 or $1 million. This was a while ago. And then once they got it in, they realized it was another $2 million to configure to what they needed it to work as. Maintenance. There's a lot of maintenance that has to go on to an LMS. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because I know a lot of you have gone through upgrades to your LMS, and it's not just like uploading a new version of Word. It can get gnarly. LMS organization features, rules, reporting constraints. So an LMS really doesn't allow you as much flexibility to format your instruction the way you'd like. For example, if you have a curriculum and you want the curriculum to appear a certain way on a web page, you can probably get the web page to appear as you'd like it, but the LMS itself may have constraints and restrictions as far as what your page can look like, or how it can launch, or how it can load. Here's a really interesting one. LMS is loaded with organizational information duplicated from HR systems. So let's say a person enters an organization as a sales engineer. Well, the LMS needs to know that that person's a sales engineer so that they can report it accordingly. So a lot of LMSs need to duplicate what's in a Microsoft Office Exchange or environment. So they need to replicate or duplicate that from HR. The demo I just showed, all that we had, all the information we had from you was your name and email address. So what that means is we can track and then we can report back to whatever HR systems you're using. So we don't necessarily, an LRS doesn't necessarily need to know your whole organizational structure. It can have just a tiny bit of information to know who you are, and then with other systems, you can tie in the information you get from the LRS. What's really a nice advantage of that is, since the LRS is cloud-based, if anybody ever hacked in to the LRS and all they had was name and email address, there's no other information they're going to get that could come over from an HR system. They're not going to be able to figure out the person's address, the person's phone number, any of their other personal information. So it's, again, lightweight. That's the idea. It's self-contained. An LMS is self-contained. It's not really built for integration. They never were. They were not, integration with other systems were not designed unless the LMS was designed around a specific system like SAP or other systems like that. LMS was designed to work from a desktop. It uses a common packaging mechanism, communication, and launching mechanism. The bottom line really with LMS, and why I am such an advocate of the LRS and what the LRS and what Tin Can is proposing, is in the LMS, priority was given to tracking learning over access to learning. And I know, again, preaching to the choir, a lot of you out there have experienced this, where all you wanted, you spent months preparing a great e-learning piece or a great presentation or interactive simulation. Then what happened to it? Well, you have to track it. So what we did is we buried it behind 7 clicks to get to the presentation, or to get to this piece of information, this valuable piece of learning. That's not how education works. That's not the ideal, not even the ideal. I mean, it's not how education should work. What you want for your organization is people to be able to easily find and access and use the content you created. So by giving priority to tracking learning over access to learning, you cut down on access to learning, what I like to call the LMS jail. Tin Can allows you to set your learning free. And I know a lot of the organizations and colleagues I work with have taken the same exact lessons that they create and put in the LMS and are now putting them on things like a SharePoint site and other web pages so that people have a central place to go and access all the great content they produced. One more piece before I get off this slide. It's a story from another a colleague of mine who actually who works with me in NetTotal. He had a lesson that he had on the LMS. It was for sales. It was a product sales course, and the average number of times a salesperson went through that lesson was once, and that was so they get marked complete, and their manager would stop bugging them, and they would stop getting emails alerting them that they needed to take the course. He took the course out and put it in an interface that was tracked by an LRS. The average number of times a salesperson accessed that course was 7 times. 700% more use of that content because it was where people could find it in a more natural and logical place. Okay. So how is the LRS different? And again, the LRS works on Tin Can API. An LMS can also have an LRS with it. And you're starting to see them proliferate. You start people like Articulate and Articulate Storyline and Captivate, Lectora. They all produce Tin Can API content now. So you're starting to see LRSs, traditional LMSs, start to adopt the LRS. But it's not that easy because they have all of these constraints and issues, restrictions to adopt a new format and a new protocol. So what's so great about Tin Can API? Well, you can host anywhere, and you can track everywhere. So apps, web, machines. I just showed you how I could track, and you just did it. You tracked from the web. It was a web page. You can track also from apps, SharePoint sites. Machines can report statements. You can learn anywhere. All you need is an identity. So you can put learning out in the field. You can have instructors with checklists, checking people off as they complete certifications or complete activities. It's a cloud-hosted solution, flexibility to integrate with other systems, new and better data. There's, again, LMS clients and colleagues I've worked with, when we talk about special reports from the LMS, it's typically hire a special person who can get that data out of the LMS that you need. The LRS is much more flexible, and it's better able to integrate not only with the LMS, but also other systems that are already in place. And also web-based systems, modern web-based systems. Okay, so you organize content how it makes sense, how you need to. One of the concepts I promote is put all the content where it makes sense to put it. Give people a home for reference and training material. And here you can do that with the LRS. You can put all the material you need in one place how you want it, and now you can also track it. That's a tremendous thing for any organization. LRS does not need to hold personal information on it. There's no need to host content on a specific server just to track it. You can track anywhere. You just need to open up, make sure that environment is open to writing out to the cloud and that LRS. It's designed for use on any device, and it's a common format and language. And here's kind of it flips the traditional LMS on its end and gives priority to access and data with the ability to track. And that's true, but it's much more than that. And let's see a little bit more about what else the Tin Can API is. Okay, so what I'd like to do here is I want to know what performance organization goals does your organization want from your training department. Now, I'll go back. Let's see. Call this up again? No, but I'll do this. I'll go back. I'll cheat a little bit. There we go. If you go back to your houston.html, and you can do this on your phone. I'm just doing it here because it's a little more convenient. Go ahead and click on this link. And what this does is it builds a word cloud, and you can enter words, and you'll see them build. So we can all type, and we should see them build. So here, for example, what does your organization want from your training department? I'm going to say accuracy or better accuracy. And I encourage you to go ahead and type in you want. You can see better accuracy. Let's see.
And Adam, I'm trying to navigate back there right now. It logged me out, and I have to log back in. I don't know if that's happening to anybody else.
Oh,
and
okay. You don't have to go back. You can just go back to the HTML page, the Houston. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you show us where we can get to that area again?
Yeah, sorry. Yep. If you go to edtotal.com, houston.html, just click on the second link, and it'll open it up. Let me see if I can bring back my phone too.
I think I got it.
Houston.
Phone back? No. Okay. So here, let's see what we got. Have safety. Let me refresh and see. Okay, safety is, yeah, one time, okay. It's one time. Let's see. All right, I'll reload again. Okay, so has anybody seen anything different? Let's see. I can actually close this, open it again. There it is, tiny information, good. Okay, I'll give it like one more minute and then I'll continue. So you can see this was answered twice. This was answered one time. This is a nice tool, by the way. It's called Answer Garden. It's free, and it allows you to build word clouds. It's kind of a nice way of getting people to participate. All right. One more time, and then all right. Let me shrink this. So let me go back to my presentation. So this title of the talk today, the webinar, is what Tin Can do for you, right? So let's look first at what it can do for training. It can bring training to the moment of need. It's interesting, I find it interesting that organizations give compliance courses, yet the compliance course is often taught at the desktop, and the person needing the information needs the information not at the desktop but in the field. So here I'm showing a person at the moment of need consulting their compliance course. What were the instructions in the compliance course? Was it the red button or the blue button? So Tin Can is really good for providing information at the moment of need, tracking it, and not needing to track it in a separate location. In the same way that you receive badges when you went into the interface and completed an activity, you can receive badges so you can see they're complete, but again, there's one place for all your information. Tin Can allows that. OJT, this is on-the-job training, one of my favorite subjects. With Tin Can, what you can do is you can mobilize training. You can give people iPads for training. You can give them, you can deliver training on their smartphones. You can develop a curriculum where people can somewhat train themselves. So remember also that the phone and these devices also have GPS, so people know where they are. So the training program can know where they are and present content accordingly or direct them accordingly via GPS. But here, it's the concept of a person training themselves. Maybe just give them a couple of rules or an overview, and then give them the tablet, and they can go out and train themselves. They can do a lot of training on their own. Not only that, they can do really cool things with Tin Can. They can, let's say they were setting up a display. Let's say this person was in a supermarket, and you were training them to be a rep, like a rep for Frito-Lay or something. They were setting up displays. When they were done with the display, what they could do is take a picture, send it, and by sending it, it would attach to an XAPI statement. The LRS would receive it, and then it could forward it to the supervisor or whoever was reviewing it, and then they could give feedback on how the display was set up. Lots of great opportunities with on-the-job training in Tin Can. Here, we're just showing a person on the go. And a person in downtime, and a lot of, depending on what your trainees and your staff are, there are a lot of people who spend time in airports. They love to go through that compulsory course or that product knowledge course if they could get it on their iPad, or if it was easily accessible, or if it was easily updatable. So here is a way to allow people to get to your content while on the go. Workflow and integration, observing and reporting. So they're able to observe and report on site, and depending on what the report is, you could move them to the next level of performance. Blended learning. Now, we talk about blended learning in terms of formal learning, in terms of classroom and e-learning, but here now you can actually integrate the field. And what this is showing is this person is reporting the accuracy of a weld. So what they could do is they could put your name in, because you performed the weld, then run the machine over it to determine the accuracy, and then send a message to the LRS saying how accurate or inaccurate your weld was. And then finally, performance observation, being able to perform activity checklists and track and report those activities. So lots of ways training can open up. And Tin Can expands learning programs. So here we're showing the 70-20-10 model. The LMS really lives in the 10% formal, right? Either classroom or webinar or e-learning, but 90% of your learning comes from other people or other experiences, not 70% through experience. What if you were reading a web page or had completed watched a video, how that was very relevant to your work? How would you record that? How would that be part of your learning program? When in reality, it probably should be or could be also learning from others. Reports from the field. How do you report from the field with an LMS? This Tin Can allows you, an XAPI allows you to start exploring ways where you can get experiential behavior, social behavior, and all melded in to the program. All right. Which feeds into another new kind of phenomenon, or that people talk about this new structure, and which is learning ecosystems. I don't know if you've begun hearing about it. I see that they're having their first seminar or webinar. No, it's actually a conference on learning ecosystems. So traditional learning ecosystems, classroom, lab, you'd have a lab, and then you have e-learning. And it pretty much ends there. If you're lucky, it goes into the field. With the web of learning resources surrounding every individual, you want an environment now that connects to others, and you want an overall structure which all learning can take place, including things like mentoring, learning from outside sources, learning from competitors, in-field observations, and really why should the feedback for a learning ecosystem should be constant. So things like continue to evaluate performance, where somebody would go in even a year or two after a job, look at what work you've done, and report back on it. And that would all feed into the learning record, and depending on what the reports were, it could recommend more lab work, an e-learning course, a book, a video. Also, as your colleagues continue to find relevant and important information, they can also put that into the learning ecosystem. I just read an article on spot welding, or I just saw this presentation on a new tool on spot welding, and then that can go into the learning ecosystem, and then we can start reporting on people who've seen that or people who've experienced that. And that includes learning from others and other sources. Tin Can allows for that as well. So what performance and organizational goals?
Adam, before you start on that, are you going to talk at all about, like, if somebody was interested in the programming side of it? I mean, is that something that you guys offer for training, or where would I get that information?
Okay, that's a good question. So you're talking about programming for XAPI, how to make your content XAPI compatible? I guess, is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah, I mean, that one of the first slides you showed was like all that code, and it's where would you go to learn that kind of thing, or is it all template based and GUI based or something?
That's a good question. So Tin Can API XAPI is a spec, so it's a standard. It's a 65-page document which outlines the specifications for what you can set, what can be in a Tin Can API statement and what can be accepted in a Tin Can API statement. You can go through that and look and determine how to write statements. But those statements are basically written, we do it in, use JSON, JavaScript, a little bit of PHP if we have to, but you can write them in any format. You can write them in any format. It's basically an HTTP request that goes out is what it ends up being. It gets sent out, an HTTP request, then the LRS picks it up, the LRS processes it, and records the statement. And on the LRS side, the record store side, if there's any other algorithms that go along with receiving the statement, it'll run the algorithm. For instance, let's say you're reporting on somebody being certified to drive a jet ski. So you report that they're certified, you put their name, email address in, and you click the certification button. That app or that web page or SharePoint site sends a request out, sends HTTP request out to through the internet to the record store gets it. It says, oh, okay, I'm receiving a statement for this activity. For this activity, if I receive a statement where the verb is certified, I send a certificate to the actor, and I notify the actor supervisor, or I notify something else, or I trigger something else, or I alert another system. So that's kind of how the programming takes place. The actual putting together the XAPI statements are fairly simple, and you can find sources online where you can have a template for building the XAPI statement. It's just a matter of getting the learning record store to accept it, analyze it, and perform whatever other actions you want to.
Thanks.
Was that satisfactory or too much, or?
No, that helps. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So what performance and organizational goals do you want? You want better accuracy, all right? Well, better accuracy, you're allowed now, you can track and view results, so you can actually see the results. You can monitor and alert people, and you can do in-field certifications. So here, where the accuracy may have been the best you could do was a simulation exercise on e-learning, you can actually do this, start performing these tasks in the field and get a little bit better accuracy. Also with that is you can have performance support tools that provide information to allow for better accuracy. More timely information, reference and collaboration at the moment of need. There was Rustici, who also has been instrumental in implementing Tin Can. They had a demo. One of their webinars had a demo where they had soldiers shooting at targets, and the soldiers were hooked up to their heart rate and their breathing were hooked up to one machine, and the target, when you hit the target, it would send XAPI statements out to an LRS, which would then send it to yet another machine. This algorithm on the server would take the target information and the biological information, heart rate, breath, combine them, and then provide immediate feedback to the soldier on their shot. In other words, let's say the soldier shot high. What would pop up on their screen is it would say your breathing is, you're breathing too rapidly, your heart rate is too high. If you lower your breathing rate, you should be able to hit the target better. So it's really, and that spoke to how timely the information can get. Safer work environment. Your mobile phone is with you all the time. Everybody has their mobile phone with them all the time. If you can provide the safety information on their mobile phone, they'll look at it. Where people sometimes get in trouble with safety is they want to be safe, but they don't remember how to be safe or what the procedures are, and then they just guess. Increased sales, product knowledge. The courses aren't in the LMS anymore. They're out in a format where they can access them readily. when they need them. More knowledgeable employees, they can receive alerts for new contents. All content is in a mobile device or on a site. Compliance standard procedures. You can reduce costs, what I call train yourself, or let people train themselves. On-the-job training. You can set up on-the-job training on their mobile phone. May not get them all the way there, but it could get them very, very far. And then finally, vendor third-party training. LMSs have issues with people who are not in the organization. Well, we can give them, can we give them IDs and to log in? Well, yeah, we can for some of them, but some of them we can't because there's all this other information we need about them. This makes vendor third-party training fairly easy. Put in your email address. If you want, you put a password in, and away they go. So Tin Can allows you to focus on these goals and track and report activity in the classroom, office, home, plant, or field. And this slide basically just shows the different pieces that can go around an LRS. And here I put the name of our LRS, but it can be any LRS. It can be tied into assessments. I know it's being used in hospitals, Tin Can, so that they can track from classroom to what's actually happening in patient rooms and during surgeries, performance observations, customer resource management, sales, games, all of them, some very successful games, learning games on mobile devices have been tied into LRS. It's just easy to report. The games in a lot of ways are cloud-based, and then the LRS is cloud-based, so it's kind of an easy solution. And it's also a lot easier to talk to IT about a hosted solution versus let's get this monolith program in here that costs 6 figures and install it and then be responsible for it. Okay. This is my last slide, and the last slide I just want to this I received from another presentation, and it's the evolution of the employee, and it talks about what happened, the past employee, and here's the future employee. And what I look at is uses any device. The ability to use any device, the ability to work anywhere, to work anytime. This is the LRS. This is the promise of Tin Can and XAPI. And even down here, focused on adaptive learning, democratized learning and teaching. These are relies on collaboration technologies. XAPI can adapt to all of this, can adapt and report to all of this. Our world always has been much bigger than e-learning and classroom, our world of education. And XAPI and Tin Can allows us to start to go after that, to start to capture data from it, track it, and analyze it. Okay.
Yeah, that's a very interesting slide to end on there because it hits on several different hot buttons there of the differences between the past and the future, and where, I mean, in a lot of cases, there's still a lot of transition going on where, some people are trying to hold on to some of those past variables and not transitioning well into those future ones.
That's a good point, Ken. I think, and what I found is when companies invest a lot of money in a system, they are reluctant to either go to a different system. They want to get as much mileage out of that system as they can. And I think that's one of the things holding Tin Can API up. I think is that just the legacy systems.
Right. Does anybody have any final comments or questions for Adam while we still have him? And Adam, I don't know if you want to bring up that slide that had your contact information, if anybody wants to copy that down in case they think of something later and want to follow up. And while he's doing that, obviously you can contact us here at ATD Houston, and we can put you into contact with Adam as well if you misplace the information or you don't get it down or think of something later or just want to connect with him. So want to thank everybody for joining us today. And if there aren't any, I don't see any final questions or comments coming in through the chat. I want to thank Adam for taking some time to share with us in the ATD Houston chapter.
Thank you.